Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Monotui, coach of the Baltimore Orbeetles, and today we're coming at you with the Week 1 team builder for the APA. If you don't know what the APA is, definitely check out the link in the YouTube description below. It's basically a draft league where you get to draft various different Pokemon, and you're set into using those 11 or 12 Pokemon or however many you have throughout the season, but obviously you can change up sets depending on your opponent. I don't know why I'm explaining draft league. I feel like everyone who watches me from my draft league. But, in case you're new, that's a quick little rundown, and some other people have some better explanations as for what it is. And also, if you're curious into learning what my team is, I would highly recommend you checking out the draft analysis. That was the video most recent to this upload. There's the video before this one, rather, that I uploaded. But either way, this week we are going up against a very good friend of mine, Ben, aka General Tar Heel. And what is this team name? Something garbage, right? Like Charlotte Charizards? Yeah, alright. So, we're going up against the Charlotte Charizards. Ben's a very good friend of mine. I've known him for well over a year now, actually. Play Fortnite all the time, game a lot. Good guy, funny guy. Check out his channel. His and every other coach in the league will be in the description below. But this week we have to face him. And real quick, I'm going to pull up his team, and hopefully it'll be on screen. Hopefully the matchup will be on screen. If I can figure out how to edit with my editing software, it'll hopefully be at the bottom right the entirety of the video. But if not, then take a picture or something. But his team consists of Aromatisse, Braviary, Celebi, G-Max, Gengar, Goodra, Manectric, Mantine, Obstagoon, Reboot, Steelix, and Terrakion. So, pretty well-rounded team. Pretty much everything on his team can be threatening offensively. There's a lot of different options for bulk that he has on this team. Like Aromatisse, Celebi, Goodra, Mantine, Steelix, all very, very bulky. And all of those things can hit pretty hard as well, which can be a bit of an issue. He also obviously has the Manectric and the Steelix, which are both immune to Bolt Beak from Dracozolt, which is going to be a big win condition this week. And then he has a Terrakion, which is always a massive threat in this generation. I honestly kind of feel like it's gotten a little bit better, just because the 108 speed tier isn't really outmatched by all that many things. Like, if you want to look at my team, the only thing on my team that outspeeds Terrakion is Inteleon, naturally. Obviously, I have Sandrush Dracozolt, which I will be bringing, spoiler alert. But outside of that, I'm going to have to run a Scarfer in order to outspeed it, and my team is a little bit fighting weak. Not super fighting weak, but like my resists don't necessarily want to take Stone Edge. Like I'm basically fighting rock weak is what I'm trying to say. Like Roserade is not switching into a close combat ever. Haunter dies to a Stone Edge. Clefable dies to 2 Banded Stone Edges, maybe even Life Orb Stone Edges. So he's got a very threatening team versus me. However, I do believe I brought a team of 6 that'll hopefully be able to take on whatever he decides to bring. So, why don't we just hop into that 6? Starting off, had to bring the G-Max Melmetal. If you're unaware, by the way, it's holding a Pokeball because that was the rule that we agreed upon via vote, is that G-Max cannot run a useful item. They have to run something like a Pokeball. Why it's not no item is a mystery to me, but we're going to be holding a Pokeball. G-Max is Melmetal's getting ready to pick up a Pokeball and catch the opponent's team, and that's how we're going to win. But Double Iron Bash, Thunder Punch, Superpower, and Earthquake. I just felt like 4 attacks this week was the best given his matchup. Like, Earthquake is very important for things like the Steelix, and it also gives me a nice neutral move versus something like Terrakion. Also, what Earthquake does after I G-Max is I'll be able to get a Spadef boost, which can be really, really useful versus things like the Gengar or the Goodra, which will no longer be able to knock me out with Fire Blast or Focus Blast, respectively. I'm also a nice little switch into Braviary. I can deal with the Aromatisse very well. Basically, Melmetal comes in on a lot of different things and immediately threatens them with whatever coverage I have. Like, I'm pretty sure with this coverage, I 2-a-KO basically, or Oko everything on his team. Like, Aromatisse is going down to my Steel move. Braviary is taking a ton from my Steel or Electric move. Celebi might be able to take it decently well, but even then, like, I have G-Max, I have Max Knuckle, so I can boost my attack and then hit it with the Max Meltdown or whatever the hell this move is called. And again, if it comes in on an on a Max Ground move, obviously good play. He's not going to be taking as much damage, and he's going to be wasting my G-Max turns. But then my Spadef is boosted, and then what's Celebi going to do to me? Once I'm G-Max, Earth Power is going to do absolutely nothing to me. So That's really solid versus his team. It takes hits from literally everything and it dishes them out way, way harder. If I get a successful G-Max versus his team, I might be able to pick up like 2 or 3 different kills just because I deal out so much damage and I'm going to be taking so little from everything on his team. He's going to definitely have a lot of trouble with this. You know, something like a powerful ghost move like from Gengar or maybe Skull burning me is maybe the best way to deal with me. But even then, like, I'm not going to be taking all that much damage. Even Banded Terrakion has a chance, just to max HP, no defense investment, to max HP, G-Max Melmetal has a chance to not 2 KO it. That's a Banded Terrakion potentially not 2 KOing something that's weak to it. But that's going to be our Melmetal. Very big fan of this thing. And I'm also a huge fan of Dracozolt versus my opponent. So, Dracozolt, if you don't know, we are battling on land mode because that's the way you get the 15-minute chess timer as opposed to using Pokemon's garbage 20-minute timer. So because we're doing it on land mode, you can use Pokemon that are not necessarily in the game at the moment, and such a thing like Sandrush Dracozolt is possible, which is what we are going to be running this week because it absolutely obliterates his team. Now, when you look at his team, obviously he has a Steelix, and that's definitely a very good check to it. It's probably the best check he has outside of maybe something like Celebi. Celebi, I have other things to deal with it. And obviously, Aromatisse is not coming in on a Life Orb Bolt Beak. That's just not. And then if you want to send in Manectric, then okay, good play. But if I'm in the sand, I still outspeed you and I just knock you out with an Earthquake. So it's not really all that big of a deal. As you can see, though, we're running Fire Blast. And with the naive nature, you know, even without that much special attack, if he's a physically defensive Steelix, this has a chance to 2 KO him. If he's running a little bit more Spadef, then it's still a 3 KO, and then you know, if I catch it on the switch once with Fire Blast, he's gonna have to be very, very careful about switching it in later on, because if he's fully Spadef, then Earthquake is gonna be doing a decent amount of damage. Then, you know, my Clefable has Flamethrower, I could potentially chip away at it with that. I have a Sandaconda for the Steelix. I have various different ways to deal with the Steelix, including the Dracozolt itself. So if I'm able to whittle it down, since it has no recovery, I will be able to sweep late game with the Bolt Beak, which I absolutely plan on doing. Because even if Gengar is G-Maxed, after Rocks, I believe it's a guaranteed OHKO. Which is nuts. It does like 70 to 80% to fully physically defensive Aromatisse. Obviously, Terrakion getting blown back, Reboot getting blown back, Obstagoon's getting blown back. Goodra can take 1 Bolt Beak, but then it dies to the Dragon Claw afterwards. Like I said, maybe Fizdef Celebi is something that comes, but even then it doesn't want to take like an Adamant Life Orb Dragon Claw. And I do have some other answers for Celebi. Like, I can just go hard into Melmetal on Celebi and I'll be perfectly fine. And I do have Ice Beam on my my Inteleon here, which is actually the next model that we're going to go into. So, Dracozolt, big win con this week. Very much looking forward to that. Next up, we are going with our Inteleon. Now, Inteleon is solid versus his team for a few reasons. One, it outspeeds everything on his team, which is very important. I outspeed the Gengar, I outspeed the Terrakion, obviously. Very, very nice versus him. It does have a few checks, obviously. Like, if he's specially defensive Celebi, or just a very bulky Celebi in general, Ice Beam's not going to be going it. He also obviously has the Mantine, which hardwalls me completely. Inteleon has nothing in its moveset that'll be able to touch it. But outside of that, Surf is very, very spammable versus his team. If he's fully Fizdef Aromatisse, Mystic Water Surf, I believe, is the 2 KO after Stealth Rock, and if not, it's still going to be doing a good chunk of damage. It does a lot of damage to the Gengar. Versus the Goodra, especially if it's AV, Ice Beam is not going to be doing all that much. However, I will be able to outspeed it and just go for a U-turn. I also have U-turn on the expected Mantine switch, which is going to be really nice for me. This is also obviously a great offensive check to Steelix, which is the thing threatening my Dracozolt. So if I'm in with Inteleon and he has the Steelix out, I can just click U-turn as he makes the obvious switch out into Mantine, and then I can go into something like Dracozolt to provide immediate pressure, or I can go into Melmetal to provide pressure. Or I can go into even something like Gigalith to set up the sand and maybe set up rocks, because on a free switch, there's a good chance he's not staying in to take a Stone Edge. Even if, you know, he could go for a Scald to potentially burn me, but if he doesn't burn me and if I hit him with a Stone Edge, that's doing a ton of damage. Either way, that's going to be Inteleon. Not too much to say about it, just kind of like a boring 4 attack set. But it works really well versus his team. Very excited to start using this thing. Next up, we got Gigalith, and Not only is Gigalith very important for the stand to help my Dracozolt sweep late game, and obviously not only is it my Stealth Rocker, but this thing works really well offensively versus his team with very little offensive investment. Like, when you take a look at his team, Orbeetles gets bopped by Heavy Slam, Braviary bopped by Stone Edge, Celebi, if it wants to come in, can, but still taking a lot of damage from that Stone Edge. Gengar will not be able to OHKO me in the slightest, and I can hit that thing very hard with an Earthquake. Goodra getting hit very hard with Stone Edge, Manectric, Earthquake, Mantine, Stone Edge, Obstagoon. You know, you get the point at this point. There's nothing that really wants to switch in on my Gigalith, and this isn't even supposed to be one of the main offensive pieces of this team. With only 12 attack EVs and Adamant, it's going to be able to 2-KO or OHKO the majority of my opponent's team, which is going to be really, really nice because similarly to Melmetal this week, Gigalith takes so little damage from so many things on his team, and yet it deals out so much damage. Like, Steelix, or I guess Steelix isn't the best example, but something like Orbeetles is doing maybe like 20% to me with Moonblast, and then I'm smacking it for 50 to 60 with Heavy Slam. You know, if it's fully physically defensive. Just a really nice Mon versus his team. Very, very slow, but it doesn't really matter when you're taking so little damage from the rest of his team. And like I said a little bit earlier, Scald from Mantine is barely doing anything to me. It's doing maybe like 30 to 35% or so to my Spadef variant. So if it doesn't burn me and it eats a Stone Edge, that's going to set the door up for my Inteleon really, really nicely. You know, once I get that Mantine in range of an Ice Beam from Inteleon, Inteleon has a really, really fun time. By the way, going back to Inteleon, forgot to mention that we're naive with the Aqua Jet. That's obviously just so I can hit something like Terrakion a little bit harder. It'll do about 50% or so. My attack stat isn't terrible. You know, base 85, obviously I'm uninvested, but Aqua Jet, just in case he's a setup variant, just in case he's able to get, or in case he's Scarf and I whittle it down a little bit to around 50%, I can pick it off with the Aqua Jet. But anyway, that's the last move on Inteleon. Here's the Gigalith. Like I said, going to be the rocker, going to be a very nice rocker versus team, and these three moves are going to be able to do a ton of work to him. So, that's Gigalith. Now we got Clefable. Probably the more boring, you know, probably one of the most boring sets that we have right here. There's Wish Soft-Boiled. This dual recovery allows me to either heal myself or heal others without relying on Protect. Protect is kind of a nice move, obviously, but I'd rather just the option to Soft-Boiled up and then go for a Wish to potentially pass into something like my Melmetal or my Dracozolt if I have to, or even my Gigalith. Again, Gigalith can switch into or a large number of different things. This also gives me a nice neutral Mantine switch in, even though I can't touch it all that much. I'll obviously be able to go into Clefable and not care about being burnt because of my Magic Guard, and I have Moonblast and Flamethrower. That's basically the only coverage moves I need versus his team. I would have I would have wanted to fit Thunderbolt on there somewhere for the Mantine, but wasn't the biggest deal in the world. Either way, Moonblast obviously neutral against Mantine, possibility to get the special attack drop. This also gives me a decent neutral switch into Terrakion. You know, if I know if he's going for close combat, I can send it in, take the hit relatively well. Same thing with Obstagoon. I can take a knockoff plus a burned Facade, I believe. Obstagoon isn't really something that I have great switch-ins to outside of the Sandaconda, which you'll see in a minute, but if it can live one hit and then get off a ton of damage with Moonblast, I'll be totally happy. Clefable, it doesn't have the best matchup this game, but it's also something that at least, gives me value in Flamethrower chip onto Steelix or Moonblast onto Obstagoon or switching into the Mantine. It has a small role this game, but hopefully it'll be able to exceed in that role. Lastly, we got our Sandaconda right here. Now, I debated on this set for a while. I was debating like Coil over Glare, but then I realized that his team overall is a little bit faster than mine. So I decided that I would just be running the Glare. And what Glare allows me to do is obviously paralyze whatever wants to come in. And then I also take hits very well. Like, I take hits from the Obstagoon. If he's Life Orb Terrakion, I should be able to take 2 Life Orb close combats, which will be very nice, because that'll be 20% onto him. Or that'll be, 10% onto him. He can switch. I can rest. Ideally, I wake up with a Shed Skin. I can also just throw a Glare around pretty freely. Like, the only thing that can't be paralyzed on his team is the Manectric, and, there's no reason for you to switch a Manectric into a Ground type. Even his slower things, if I paralyze, like the Orbeetles or the Steelix, who cares? It's paralysis. Paralysis wins you games. If I full para the Aromatisse on a certain turn, could be huge for me. But yeah, it's going to be our Sandaconda. Nice little Pokemon right here. Earthquake obviously is stab and hits various things like Terrakion and Steelix. Stone Edge is just so I can potentially catch like the Mantine on the switch in or the Braviary on the switch in, so I'm not completely beaten by a sub Braviary or just an annoying Mantine. Either way, I'm very happy with the matchup this week. I'm pretty confident going into the game. I'm very excited to start using some of these Pokemon. Like, I'm very excited to use Sandrush Dracozolt. I love me some Dracozolt, and I'm not going to have to risk missing with Hustle, and I'm going to be outspeeding everything. Very excited to start using big old Melmetal over here, G-Maxing it, destroying lives. And I'm very excited, honestly, I'm most excited to use Gigalith. This thing has been around for a little while now, and it's just always destroys me when I play against it, whether it be in draft or in standard. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, definitely check out Ben and the rest of the coaches down in the description below. And have a nice day, everyone.